Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction for Game 3 of the ALCS between the Kansas City Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays, played October 19th, 2015. We're going to go over every at-bat and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. And heading into this game, the Royals were up 2-0 as they won the first two games in Kansas City. And here we were in Toronto, Ontario for Game 3. And on the mound for the Blue Jays, Marcus Stroman. And on the mound for the Royals, Johnny Cueto. So to start off in the top of the first, Escobar led off with a triple as Batista tried to make the play on the ball, but it was just out of his reach. It got by him, and the speedy Escobar ended up on third. Zobrist would bring him in with a ground out, and so it was 1-0 Kansas City over Toronto. Kane flew out and Hosmer grounded out, and that would do it for the top of the first, but not after the Royals had gotten on the scoreboard first in this game. So now in the bottom of the first, Cueto would set down Revere as he flew him out. Then Donaldson struck out, Batista drew a walk, and Encarnacion struck out as Cueto had two strikeouts in the first inning. So now at the top of the second, Stroman would let up a leadoff single by Morales. Moustakas flew out. Perez grounded into a fielder's choice. Morales was out at second. Gordon then reached on a single, so he had runners on the corners, 2 outs for Rios. He flew out, and that did it for the top half of the second. So now in the bottom of the second, Colabello grounded out. Tulowitzki reached on a single. Russell Martin was hit by a pitch, so had 2 on with 1 out for Pilar. He grounded into a fielder's choice. Martin was out at second, and so he had runners on the corners for Goins. Pilar would steal second, so now he had second and third, and Goins would single, and that would bring in Tulowitzki and Pilar. Pilar made a great slide just out of the reach of the tag, and he was safe at home, and it was now 2-1 as the Blue Jays took the lead by 1 in the second. Revere would then walk, and so you had Goins actually taken second on the throw home, and now you had runners on first and second with Revere and Goins for Josh Donaldson. Donaldson hit a single, Goins scored, and it was now 3-1 as the Blue Jays extended their lead to 2. Batista would fly out, and that would do it for the second inning, but not before the Blue Jays took the lead by scoring 3 runs in the bottom of the second. So now in the top of the third, Escobar would ground out. Zobrist then hit a double. Kane would reach on an infield single, so now you had runners on the corners, 1 out for Hosmer. He would ground into a fielder's choice, but that would bring in Zobrist. Kane was out at second, but it was now a 1-run game with the score 3-2 as the Royals cut the Blue Jays' lead. Morales would then reach on a single, but Moustakas flew out, and so that would do it for the top of the third, but not after the Royals had added a run to make it 3-2. So now the Blue Jays would respond in the bottom of the third as Encarnacion reached on a single. Colabello drew a walk, so 2 on, no out for Tulo, and Tulo went deep for the 3-run shot, 425 feet, and it was now 6-2 as the Blue Jays extended their lead to 4. So Tulowitzki with a big home run, and then Russell Martin would draw a walk. Kevin Pilar then doubled, and that brought in Martin, and it was now 7-2 as the Jays were up by 5, and Johnny Cueto was done for the day as he just could not get an out in the third. So no outs still. Medlin would come in to relieve Cueto, and he would strike out the first batter he faced, Goins, and then Revere grounded out, and now Donaldson would come to the plate with Pilar on, 2 outs, and Josh Donaldson goes deep, 458 feet to left, and it was now 9-2 as he had 2 home runs in this bottom of the third and 6 overall runs scored by the Blue Jays, so they were now up by 7. Batista would strike out, and that would bring it into the third, but not after the Blue Jays had dropped a couple of bombs and made it 9-2. So now on to the top of the fourth, Stroman would set down the side in orders. You got Perez to ground out, Gordon lined out, and Rios flew out. So the bottom of the fourth, Medlin would let up a leadoff single by Encarnacion. Then Colabella hit into a double play, and Tulo would strike out. So that would do it for the fourth. So now it's at the top of the fifth. Stroman would let up a leadoff single to Escobar. Then Zobrist hit a double, so now you had two runners in scoring position, second and third with no outs for Kane. He flew out, but it was shallow to right, and they didn't want to test Batista's arm as he's got quite the cannon. So the runners held, and now Escobar would end up scoring on a wild pitch while Zobrist was at the plate. And so then we'd end up with Hosmer striking out, and Morales would walk, and then Moustakas hit a single, and that brought in Zobrist, and it was now 9-4. Perez then grounded into a fielder's choice, and that would do it for the top of the fifth. So now on to the bottom of the fifth. Medlin would strike out Martin, Pilar grounded out, and then Goins went deep, 421 feet, and it was 10-4. So it was a 6-run lead, and then Revere flew out, and that would do it for the fifth, but not after the Royals had added 2 runs in the top half of the inning, and the Blue Jays added 1 in the bottom half of the inning. So now on to the top of the sixth. Stroman's still on the mound. He got Gordon and Rios to ground out, so 2 outs for Escobar. He hit a single, and then Zobrist grounded out, and that would do it for the top of the sixth. So Medlin's still on the mound for Kansas City. He would get Donaldson to ground out to start off the bottom half of the sixth. Batista would walk, and then Encarnacion flew out, and then Colabello grounded into a fielder's choice, and that did it for the sixth. So now at the top of the seventh, Stroman's still pitching strong, and Kane would ground out. Hosmer then singled, and that would do it for Stroman as Sanchez would come in to relieve him, and he would get Morales to fly out and Moustakas to ground out, and that would take us to the 7th inning stretch. So now the bottom half of the 7th, Medlin would set the side down in order as he got Tulowitzki to strike out, Martin struck out, and Pilar flew out. So now the top of the 8th, and Tulo was actually ejected for arguing, and so Tulo would be done, and then you end up with Pennington at second, Smoke at first, Goins at short, and Lowe in to relieve Sanchez. And Lowe would set down the side in order as he got Perez to ground out, Gordon struck out, and Rios flew out. So now the bottom of the 8th, Morales in to relieve Medlin. He would get Goins to foul out. Revere then reached on an infield single. Donaldson then walked. And now Batista at the plate. He hit a single, and that would drive in Revere. And it was now 11-4 as the Jays extended their lead back to 7. Encarnacion would then strike out, and Smoke would fly out, and that would do it for the 8th. So now the top of the 9th, Liam Hendricks in to pitch for the Blue Jays, and he would let up a leadoff single to Escobar, who reached on an infield single. Zobrist then hit a double, so now you had runners in scoring position on second and third, no outs for Lorenzo Cain. He hit a sac fly, this one deep enough to drive in Escobar as he tagged up, and Zobrist moved to third. So it was now 11-5 as they cut the lead to 6. Hosmer then hit a single that brought in Zobrist, and it was now 11-6 as they cut the lead to 5. Osuna would come in to relieve Hendricks, and then Kendrys Morales went deep, a 2-run shot, 455 feet, and it was now a 3-run game with the score 11-8. So now Moustakas would ground out, and then Perez came to the plate, and Osuna would get him to ground out as well, and that would do it for the comeback attempt by the Royals in the top of the 9th as the Blue Jays win their first game in the American League Championship Series, as it's now 2-1 after the 11-8 victory here in Game 3, the first game in Toronto for the Jays, as the home team has won every game so far in this series. Stroman gets the win, 6 1/3 innings, as he allowed 4 earned runs off 11 hits. He had 1 walk and just 1 strikeout. Sanchez 2/3 of an inning pitch, no hits, no earned runs. Lowe 1 inning pitch, no earned runs, no hits. Hendricks just 1/3 of an inning, let up 3 earned runs off of 3 hits. And Osuna in 2/3 of an inning allowed 1 earned run off of that home run. And so He was accountable for one. It was a 2-run shot, but he was accountable, obviously, just for Morales there. And it was not a safe situation, even though it became a 3-run game because there was only 2 outs left. If there had been no outs when Morales had hit the home run, then Osuna could have had the save, or if it had become a 2-run game, but because it was still a 3-run game with 1 out recorded already in the 9th, it was not a safe situation. So then Johnny Cueto, he got the loss, 2 innings, and he allowed 8 earned runs off of just 6 hits, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts, and of course the 1 home run there he allowed to Tulo. Medlin pitched 5 innings of relief. He allowed 2 earned runs off of 3 hits, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, 2 home runs. Of course, that was to Goins and Donaldson. Of course, Donaldson came in, hit that home run off of him, and when he came into the game, and then Goins hit the other home run later on. Then Morales pitched 1 inning of relief, allowed 1 earned run off of 2 hits, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. And on offense, so a lot of production out of both teams, but especially the Blue Jays, as Donaldson, Tulowitzki, and Goins all went deep. They all had 3 RBIs in this game. Donaldson 2 for 4 with 3 RBIs, 1 run scored, 1 walk. He had that home run. And then, of course, Tulo with a home run as well. 3 RBIs, 2 for 4, 2 runs scored. And then Goins 2 for 4, 3 RBIs, 2 runs scored. As he also had a home run. It's Tulo and Donaldson in the 3rd, and then Goins in the 5th. Revere 1 for 4, Batista 1 for 3. Revere did come across home. Encarnacion 2 for 5 with a run scored. Colabella 0 for 3, but he drew a walk and scored a run. And then Pilar 1 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs scored. And for Kansas City, Escobar 4 for 5, 3 runs scored. Zobers 3 for 5, 1 RBI, 3 runs scored. Kane 1 for 4 with an RBI. Hosmer 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run scored. Morales 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run scored. He also had a walk. Moustakas 1 for 5 with an RBI. Gordon 1 for 4. Perez and Rios were both 0 for. Man, the Blue Jays just started hammering them early on. They got 3 runs in the 2nd, 6 runs in the 3rd, 9 runs just in those 2 innings. And by the time it was 9-2, I mean, this game looked like it was pretty much well in hand. But the Royals did not give up. They kept at it. They scored 4 in the 9th, making it interesting, but they just ran out of outs as they got going too late. So both of these teams, once they get going, it seems like they don't stop. Especially like the Jays, like I said, the 3 runs and then 6, they just kept hammering it, just kept going. And they had the 2 home runs in the same inning. They were hitting the long balls, and when they're hitting those long balls, getting them out the yard, that's how the Blue Jays win games, by putting up lots of runs. And if you get in a run competition, a high-scoring game where you're just putting up as many runs as you can, of course it's always going to be put up as many runs as you can, but when you're just scoring lots and lots of runs, it's tough to beat the Jays in that type of game. Although the Royals showed they could put up some runs too, but it was a little bit, too little, too late. And not much pitching in this game, although Medlin was doing pretty good there for a little while until he ended up letting up, he did let up that 1 home run when he came in and let up the other one, but, and, Stroman was looking pretty good there until they got on him, in the 5th, but, not a lot of pitching in the game. Like I said, lots of offense. But there was, flashes there where we saw some good pitching. Well, really, it was just all about, the offense in this one. Is everybody was just seeing the ball really well, getting the bat on the ball. And it was a matter of like, wow, I couldn't believe that they just kept scoring runs. They just kept going and going and going. And then Goins even hit a home run. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.